Okay, A's fans, let's try to be positive. Um, what good happened?
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the podcast. We talk about your Oakland A's as long as they are rooted in Oakland. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, I'm imploring you to call me Sully. I have been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and I am now wrapping up my sixth full season. Not wrapping up, I guess we're about a third of the way through my sixth full season here at the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been the host of Locked On MLB since the 2019 season, and now I'm taking over double duty. You get your Locked On A's, you get your Locked On MLB, you get them both. You can follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. If you're listening to us every single day, make sure to use a hashtag Everyday A's when you make a comment, statement, whatever, on any of those social media sites that are slowly destroying society as we now know it, but allowing me to have you as my audience. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Are you familiar with PrizePicks? PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb. Use code all lowercase LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. That was horrible. Not my ad read. My ad read was fine. That road trip was just horrible. It was borderline worst case scenario. When you go on a 9-game road trip and you're just trying to, you had the disappointing season or series with Texas that kind of took a little wind out of the sails. Okay, but off they go to Seattle, Houston, and Kansas City. And if they could hold their own against those teams, they come back to play Colorado. They did not hold their own against those teams. And it's just too many games this road trip were the kind that make you go, oh God, no. No. This is not what we needed at all. And today was just another one of them. And we've had a couple of games where the A's just get clobbered right out of the gate. Then we have games where they lose a tight one like they did the other day. And then there's a game like today where the final score is misleading. It was funny. The final score was 8-4, and A, it didn't seem that close, and B, it was closer. I know I just contradicted myself, but out of the gate, the Royals with Bobby Witt Jr., the son of Bobby Witt. I don't know if you figured that out. Bobby Witt, by the way, was a pitcher. His dad was a pitcher who had a very nice career, had a couple of excellent seasons with Texas, wound up winning a World Series ring for his troubles with the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2001, and played in the 1992 ALCS with the A's, as he was one of the pitchers that was included in the Jose Canseco trade. When they traded Canseco at the edge of the trade deadline, they brought in Ruben Sierra. They also brought in Jeff Russell and Bobby Witt. So they got a slugger outfielder to replace Canseco and gave the A's a couple of pitchers. Sorry, I had a little itch on my nose. I wasn't going to be able to ignore that. But Bobby Witt Jr. obviously has no connection to the A's other than his desire to beat them. And he wound up getting hit and scoring a run. They're down 2-0 before you could say Jiminy Cricket. Soderstrom got the double in the fourth. Suddenly it's 2-1. Okay. And they start rallying in the fifth inning. And I thought, and you thought, we all thought, hey, maybe, just maybe, they can rally. Maybe they can put the winning run across, or at least a tying run across. Maybe they could even, God forbid, take a lead. And I'll tell you why I'm going to bring that up in just a second before we just finish recapping the game. But of course they stranded him because it's no longer early May. Then Michael Garcia doubled. It's 3-1. Bobby Witt drives another one. It's 4-1. And then the triple in the 6th inning was just the dagger. The bases clearing triple. And before you knew it was 8-1. And it was a competitive game, but you just knew when it went from 2-1 to 4-1, oh, this sucks. This just sucks with a capital sucks. And so they had to lift Sears, and Adams let one of the inherited runners score. And then Ferguson just didn't have it. He just didn't have it today. And the law firm of Muller and Miller and Miller and Muller and Muller and Miller are, they got their outs. Miller, another great inning. His ERA is now 0.93. But what does it matter? They had to use Miller. They had to use him because he was rotting. He was having atrophy in the bullpen. You know, when you have a dominant closer, but you can't take the lead, it reduces the number of times you use your dominant closer. I had no idea the season was on the line when Corey Seager hit that home run a couple weeks ago. One of you, I forget which one of you said it, said that, oh, they should have brought in Miller to pitch a 4-out save. I said, come on, stop. But turns out you were right. Forgive me, I don't remember who said that. But yeah, it turns out that was the moment the season turned around. May 6th. And Miller, it's like you have a house that's burnt to the ground, but you got a Lamborghini in the garage. You got Miller, who's pitching like a dominant closer, and there you go. But just stop and think about this for a second. They haven't won in over a week, okay? The A's have not won a baseball game in over a freaking week. That's look, I've said this many times before, and I'll say it again right now. It's never the wrong time to go on a long winning streak, and it's never the right time to go on a long losing streak. And it's never the wrong time to win a whole week's worth of games, which is what the Yankees just did with their 7-game winning streak, which is going on right now, which is still going on. It's never the right time to lose more than a week of games. Not only the A's lost 9 of their last 10 games, they've dropped their last 8. But not only that, it's actually worse. It's actually worse than an 8-game losing streak. Sully, how is that possible? They haven't had a lead in over a week. Not a win, a lead. Like they're up 1-0 in the first. That's a lead. They haven't had that. It's been... We all knew this was possible. We all knew this was possible. We all knew going into this year, everyone was saying, oh, they may lose 170 games, which is not physically possible. But when they dropped their first 3 games, we all thought, oh boy, is this really gonna happen? And then we all had fun when they reached 500 and started beating teams people weren't picking them to beat. But we all knew that this market correction was there. It just doesn't have to be so pronounced. Losing 2 out of 3 is bad enough, but at least you get that one win every once in a while. So what's positive? The road trip's over. How about that? The road trip is over. And we'll take a quick peek to see what lies ahead and why, despite this awfulness, we shouldn't get cocky. Are you struggling to close deals? Business-to-business selling is tougher than ever. And that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase their performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data that enables you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. Hey, where is your hub for your sports news, sports takes, and sports information? It's time to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you to get to all the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Earlier this year, remember when the A's were beating teams like Baltimore in Baltimore, and they were holding their own against the Yankees and, holding their own against the Rangers. There were a lot of people who were, including, those of us who were following the A's, were thinking, hey, wow, this is going to be, this shows that you can't take them for granted. And earlier this week, the Colorado Rockies were in a similar situation. The Rockies are not a very good team, and they're probably going to lose 100 games. But they went on a big winning streak that ultimately San Francisco halted. But there were teams that were circling the schedule to say, hey, the Rockies are coming to town. Here comes a real easy win, just like they were doing to the A's in late April and early May, and the Rockies took advantage of that. Well, the A's are going to be playing the Rockies next. And this is a team, like the Astros got off the mat, and the Royals and Mariners were already better than the A's. But this is a team that the A's should do well again. Now, I'll tell you, it just dawned on me while we were doing the ad read for whatever the hell the ads were. I can't remember. It was too long ago. But the best part about, as we're dropping this on the 20th day of May, 2024, the best part is we know the A's are not going to lose today. In fact, we could go to FanDuel right now and put money on that. The A's are not going to lose today. That's because they're not playing today. And they don't play until Tuesday. Hush, hush. Keep it down now. Voices carry, not till Tuesday. If you got that reference, bless you. Brooks is pitching for the A's. Quantrill is pitching for the Rocks. And maybe, just maybe, the Rockies got that really good week out of their system. Maybe, just maybe, the A's need that day off. Remembering that great scene in Bull Durham when Crash Davis turned on the sprinklers and created an artificial rainstorm that delayed the game a day. Maybe, just maybe, the fact that they could look in the mirror and go like, well, it's not going to get much worse than that. Maybe, just maybe, a little home cooking will do the job well. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the thing that I got kind of frustrated by, because you make little tiny goals for the team that you hope they can meet. And right now the record is 19-30. And an 8-game losing streak will do that to you. Because remember, at one point, they were 19-22. Less than a week ago, they were only 3 games under 500. And a nice win streak, a little burst there, or just a win here and there. But I thought would go a long way. But one little thing I just thought would be kind of psychologically cool for a team that everyone in their moose was picking to lose 100 some odd games was they would reach 20 wins before they reached 30 losses. I don't know why that seemed important to me. But it looked like that was a cinch when they were, 10 games ago, they were 18 and 22. It looked for sure they were going to reach 20 wins before they reached 30 losses. But nope, they didn't. And now another weird little thing has happened. Because remember, when this road trip started, the Astros and the Angels were looking up at the A's. Well, the Astros have leapfrogged them. And because the Rangers absolutely collapsed, the Angels, as bad as they've been, are in a virtual tie with the A's. I don't want the A's to lose 100 games. I don't want their last year in Oakland to be a disaster. And I'd love it if they weren't in last place. I know that's not a great, huge goal that people are going to remember for a long time. But for heaven's sake, we got to pick and choose our goals we want for this team. And I really hope that this is just an aberration. Teams have rotten stretches. They do. I've seen teams that have gone on to win the World Series have stretches of baseball where they just look like they're totally incompetent. You don't believe me? Take a look at the New York Yankees in 2000. At that time, they were the two-time defending World Series champion. And that team finished the season as badly as I've ever seen a playoff team finish out. They were 84-59 on September 13th, 2000, and looked like they were just cruising to the second best record in the American League, and only behind the White Sox, and looked like they were just going to cruise to yet another 90-win season. And they lost 15 of their last 18 games. And they looked incompetent. And they just stumbled into the postseason against the A's, who had home field. And the A's lost in 5 games. That happens. But I digress. I'm not saying this A's team's going to lose a World Series title here, but, losing 15 out of 18 games, even a team that had Jeter, Posada, Pettit, Rivera, Bernie Williams, and all the superstars on that team could go on a stretch like that. And we've seen bad teams go on great stretches. So have a day off, recoup, just get some home cooking, know you're back in the Coliseum, and know you're playing the Rocks. The Rocks have fewer wins than the A's. The Rocks have more losses than the A's. So therefore, the A's should wake up and go, we should win this game. All I ask right now is get a lead early. Because I don't know if you realize that, but if you actually have more runs, chances are you are actually going to have a much better chance to win the game. I know that's weird. That's called advanced stats. Hey, do you know about PrizePicks? It's America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You pick more than and less than on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Now, the baseball season is about 1/3 of the way over. Can you believe it? So don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, runs batted, and first inning runs, take your pick of more than or less than and add them to the PrizePicks entry of the day. And the basketball and hockey playoffs are winding down. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the postseason. PrizePicks is as simple and it's easy to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawal, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. And they now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits in your account this basketball playoff season. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Once again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. Do you know what? In the end, it's really that easy. This is a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts at Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channel app. All right, in today's episode of I Bet You Forgot They Played for the A's, we're going to bring up arguably the greatest second baseman in the history of baseball, and someone who, while not a native of Oakland, grew up in Oakland, went to high school in Oakland, and eventually college, and earned his degree in the East Bay. And that would be Joe Leonard Morgan. Joe Morgan was born in Texas and grew up in the East Bay. And it kind of made sense that he bookended his career starting in Texas and ending in the Bay Area. He was a star with the Astros, but had the reputation of being difficult and outspoken with the Colt 45s, who later rechristened themselves the Astros in the mid-'60s. You know what, we all have advanced years. We all know what that's code for. That's code for, he didn't keep his mouth shut and he didn't just play ball. He had opinions about things. But he was an all-star and an elite player, but was playing on an Astros team that probably wasn't going to go very far. Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Reds were the big red machine, were full of stars. But the Howsam, the general manager of the team, realizes since they moved to the artificial turf of Riverfront Stadium, they should improve their team speed. And so Lee May, who was a very popular player on the team, and Tommy Helms, who was also popular, were sent packing to the Astros in a trade that at first was absolutely hated by Reds fans. It brought in Ed Armbrister and Jack Billingham and Cesar Geronimo and Joe Morgan to the Cincinnati Reds. Now that's considered one of the greatest trades in the history of baseball. And immediately, Joe Morgan showed he wasn't just a guy with talent but a bad attitude, but he took to the big red machine like no one else. He was in the top 5 of the MVP in 4 of the first 5 years that he played for the Cincinnati Reds, winning back-to-back MVPs in 75 and 76. They went to the World Series 3 times, winning it twice. He was a Gold Glover. He led the league in walks, led the league in on base, led the league in triples, led the league in runs. All of these things went on with him there, and he was the spark plug of the big red machine. So naturally, he clashed with them in 1979, and then he finished his career kind of bouncing around. He was in the playoffs with the Reds in 79, and then off he went back. He went back to Houston, where they played the single greatest postseason series of all time, where they lost to the Phillies of the NLCS. Then he played a couple of years with the Giants, finally making it to the Bay Area, and hit the home run in 82 that put the dagger in the hearts of the Dodgers. Found himself with the Phillies in 83, where he hit 2 home runs in the World Series there. And then for the first time in his 22-year career, played in the American League. He was cut by the Phillies after the 83 World Series and found himself with the Oakland A's. And you know what? His final year was certainly not one that was going to be enshrined in the record books for him, but he played 116 games. He had an OPS in the 700s, which isn't great, but wasn't terrible. He had a few home runs and seemed right at home. And the Oakland fans embraced him. He embraced him because he was one of them. He was someone who grew up there, and that was a homecoming in so many ways for Joe Morgan, arguably the greatest second baseman of all time. And the nice thing about it is when he played his final game as a member of the Oakland A's, he got a double off of Kansas City's Mark Gubicza in his last at-bat. And Tony Phillips, who played many, many years with the A's, came in as a pinch runner, and the A's fans gave Joe Morgan a standing ovation, knowing that the native of Texas, who grew up as a son of Oakland, was finishing his Hall of Fame career. You know, it's funny. He went back to get his degree at Cal State Hayward, and he remarried. He was married, had a family, but then went through a divorce, and then remarried in the late 80s, early 90s, and had two children with his new wife. And his children were born in the 90s. And I always wondered about that because Joe was already uh, in the Hall of Fame. He was already, a retired player and everything like that. And there's dad, dear old dad, talking about the good old days. I often wonder about that with the people who had, who were superstars, who had a child much later in their life. And of course, his two daughters from his second marriage, each went on to be one went on to be a gymnast, and the other went on to play college soccer at USC. But I just wonder what it'd be like saying, "Really, Dad? You were one of the best second basemen in the history of baseball?" Yeah, yeah. It's not what I see. But he died in 2020, and he spent the rest of his life as a resident of the Bay Area. He only spent 3 years of his 22-year career as a player in the Bay Area, but he was a fixture of the Bay Area and later announced for both the A's and the Giants before becoming a national announcer. I know he was a divisive announcer, but I always liked him. I know some people didn't agree with some of his points of view, but hey, he was a Hall of Famer. He walked the walk. But I bet you forgot that Joe Morgan not only played for the A's, but he finished his career with them too. All right, well, no one's going to lose. No A's are going to lose on Monday, and that's a good thing. So I'll be back here to recap the game on Tuesday. That'll be our next episode. Will be Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Doing the autopsy on as bad a road trip as you could possibly have. This has been Locked On A's. I am yours, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.